Hey kiddos, sorry about the delay. This is Mr. Wee. So I just want to go over again how to solve inequalities with quadratic equations. So inequalities because one side is unequal to the other and it's a quadratic form or equation. Okay, so I went over the key for the 4 possible situations we can run into. Let's go over an example really quick. An example would be if you were given a situation where 0 is greater than the function of x squared plus 5x minus 6, okay? What values of x would give me, because remember, please remember that I'm always talking about y is equal to x squared plus 5x minus 6, meaning whatever x value I put in, I get some kind of y value. This is telling me what x values do I need to put in to make sure that any my y values that I get out are going to be less than 0. Again, so it's asking me what x values will I end up having in order to plug in here so I can get values less than 0. Okay. That's why we had this graph here saying, okay, in a situation where your a, the number in front of the x squared, is more than 0, and you have a situation where 0 is greater than your equation, all the x values in here will give me y values. See, kind of like this x value here, its corresponding y values down here, right? Which x values will give me y values that are less than 0. Okay, so in this case here, it happens to be these x values where I drew in right here. Here are the x values here that will give me value. See, because all these x values out here, their corresponding y values are down here. As you can see, the curve is kind of going down below the 0. So these are all situations where the x values would be to give me values that are less than 0. Okay, so let's figure out though. Let's actually show that. So this is pretty simple. I just need to solve for my roots here. So some of you guys recognize right away that I can actually work this out to get x, x minus 1 times x plus 5. Okay, I'll show you how to solve that, but I just solved that in my head. All I really need to do were to find out what 2 numbers can I multiply to get to -6, but give me the sum of negative or plus positive 5. So, oh, I'm sorry, that's a 6. That's not a 5. And technically it's your a times your c, so there's a 1 here, so 1 times -6. What 1 times -6 is -6, so what 2 numbers give me the product of -6, but when you add them together, give me the sum of positive 5. So you might remember that from here, if you remember factors of a times c, and it has to equal the sum of your b value. So in this case here, what 2 numbers will multiply to get a times c? A is 1 because there's no number in front of x squared, which implies that 1 is in front of x squared. So 1 times -6 is -6. What two numbers can give me what 2 factors can multiply to get me -6? Give me the sum of positive 5. That'd be 6 and -1. And if you work this out even further, it'd be like x squared plus 6x minus x, and then you subtract 6 as well. And if you keep going further, it'll be like x squared minus x. I would group those together, and then I would also group let's see, 6x minus 6. Okay, and then you would factor out x out of x squared minus x, so I would get x times x minus 1 plus, and I would factor out 6 here because that's the common factor between both these numbers. It'd be x minus, and then again x plus 6 times x minus 1. That's the long way to do it, but if you're quick, you can just tell me what 2 numbers, if your a is only 1, you can just put out the 2 factors right away. Okay, anyway, this is the method right here that I use to factor, so I did this in my head, but if you wanted to do it on paper, you could do it this way, or you can do the quadratic formula. Okay, whatever it is, I just need to find out what my roots are. So here's my roots, Remember, it's still it's less than 0. All these guys are less than the 0 here. So we would individually find out what, we would still solve for a value that still gives me 0. So if x in here was -1, so I have to think of a value that I would plug in for x that would give me a 0 here. So if x was -1, then +1, I apologize, +1. If x was +1, I plugged it in here, 1 minus 1, that would give me 0. Okay, so that's an answer right there. To make it easier, just look at what you have in the binomial and just look at the opposite number, like a sign, an opposite sign. Same number but opposite sign. Over here, let's follow that rule. It would just be x equals -6. Okay. Now, so again, the reason why it'd be the opposite sign, because if I had -6 plus 6, it would just be 0. And I want to make these go to 0. I want to find which numbers make these guys go to 0. Okay. Now that's not the final answer, because like I said, we're not dealing with 0 is equal to x minus 1 times x plus 6. We treat it as if it is like that to get the roots. But what we're going to do is we're going to find like a range that actually that includes these two numbers. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is your parabola, if I had to make a very educated guess, would be, the root would be at x equals 1, right, +1. The other root would be at -6, and because my a is positive, right, my a being 1 in front of the x squared is positive, all right, it's probably gonna open up. So this is what it's probably gonna look like. I don't even know what the vertex is, and I don't need to know what the vertex is. So I'm sorry, I didn't mention that this time when you're doing this, you don't need to find the vertex for solving inequalities. Solving, okay? You're not, last time you were graphing inequalities. Last time you were graphing inequalities, okay? Last time you were graphing inequalities, this time it's asking you to solve for an inequality. Okay, so you're not doing graphing, you're solving. And when you solve, you don't need the vertex. I will repeat that. If you're solving for an inequality, okay, it's asking you, because like the question will ask you to solve this, okay? It will ask you to solve for 0 is greater than whatever. It's asking you to solve. You don't need the vertex. No vertex when you're solving, okay? When you're graphing, you might need the vertex. But again, you don't need to do this, okay? Anyways, I did it this way. You can also graph to find out the roots as well. And I'll show you how to do that maybe in another video, or if you see me in personal tutoring, that'll probably be best. Anyways, let's keep going forward with this. So let's see, with the roots here, I found out the roots. Now, in which range is it going to be, like in between the roots here, or will it be the numbers outside that give me numbers that give me x values that give me corresponding y values that are below 0? So if we look here, if I memorize this, this gives me the answers right away. So in this case here, you say, let's see, our a value, or first of all, let's see what our inequality is. If 0 is greater than your quadratic equation, then we look at these two possibilities. If your equation is greater than 0, then we look at these two possibilities. So let's look at our equation. 0 is greater than. It might not look exactly like it, but again, 0 is greater than the equation. So we're going to look at these two possibilities. Because 0 is greater than the equation, over here, the equation is greater than 0. I know it's written a little bit out of order, but look, it's still the same. 0 is greater than the equation. So we look at these two values. Now, you ask, then you must ask, is the parabola opening up